So I had a drink on the plane over to Dublin, and do you know I had to pay for that? I tried to ask if I needed to pay for it before I got it, because if I found out that I was going to need to pay for it, I wouldn't have had it. But it was very confusing, very confusing. There was already a little bit of a language barrier. So I had a Coke and then I was charged for it. Thankfully, they did accept sterling because I had no euros. And of course, flying to Dublin, Dublin is in the European Union. The European Union uses euros. So that was one issue, although my issue with that was that I didn't need a drink enough to pay for it. The worry about the euros was, you know, secondary. When I got to Dublin, Dublin's airport is, it's not bad. Again, it has issues with its gates. Do you know, both these airports, both Manchester and Dublin, the gates are not appropriate. They are parts of long hallways with very, very little seating. If you're talking about Manchester, you get next to no seating at all. And the hallways are too thin. So you get people that are waiting for multiple flights and multiple gates. And because the corridor, if you like, is so thin and there's no seats, everybody is sitting on top of one another, and you know, half of the next flight is in this flight zone and stuff like that. Now, it's not quite so bad with Dublin, not quite so bad. Their problem is that they have large areas of seating for about 10 different gates. Now, Dublin was interesting. My thought was that when I got to Dublin, I would have a relatively easy ride because I wasn't expecting to have to go through clearing or anything. Dublin was a stop-off. I was expecting to face customs when I left England, so in Manchester, and when I arrived in New Jersey, so in Liberty International Airport in Newark. I have never heard of a case where a country has decided to base its entire customs outside of its own sovereignty. I have known the US to do extremely thorough security checks in other countries if you're boarding a flight to the US, but I have always known a country's customs to be inside their own jurisdiction. And so when I went to pre-clearance in Dublin, I assumed that it was just extra security for the US, and I thought that even until I arrived at Liberty International, and then I realised that the person that I'd been speaking to at the desk was not just somebody who was doing extra security, but they were actually a proper federal customs officer, Homeland Security, in Dublin. I don't like that idea at all, and I am very, very surprised that the US does that. Very surprised indeed. I know that in theory it's fine, you know, once you've checked somebody onto a flight, there's no way that they can appear on the flight and therefore get into the country. But in the same way, to me, it's just bizarre to have your customs base, your proper customs base, not just a special security, not just extra security, proper customs in a different country, so that when the plane arrives at its first port of call, in the US, it touches down the first time on US soil, and you just walk straight out into the middle of the US. There's no security, no border control. All of that is the pre-clearance in Dublin. I'm very surprised. In fact, I'm shocked and slightly appalled. I just don't think that's the way I've ever heard of anybody doing it before. But there we are. So I actually passed Homeland Security, A, without realising it, and B, well in advance of leaving for the US from Dublin. Once I'd passed through that, I was very hungry and I was very thirsty, because obviously I'd had to get rid of all my stuff, all my drink, go through customs, and then you have to spend it all over again to get the same, you know, half bottle of Coke back or whatever. I swear that's a money-making thing. I swear that's a money-making thing, because what difference does it make to the airline? Absolutely nothing. Okay, because you have a bottle, you put the bottle through the scanner, sorry, you get rid of the bottle, you go through the scanner, and what do you do on the other side? You buy another bottle, and that other bottle you can take onto the plane. So I'm sorry, so why couldn't you just put the first bottle through the scanner? Don't understand that. It's always been like that, and I always knew it would be like that. So it's not a surprise. I just do not understand. I think it's a money-making thing. And as I was quite hungry and thirsty, I decided that I would get something, and I had to use my debit card, because obviously I didn't have any euros, and I'm glad to say that it worked. So whether I get charged extra for using the debit card like that, I don't know. But there we are. I shall probably use it again in Frankfurt on the way back. But anyway, so boarding the plane. Well, the good news is that everything was in the same terminal. The bad news is that as soon as I got to the terminal, there were two aeroplanes due to leave from different gates, both going to Liberty International, and both going at the same time. One of them was Aer Lingus and one of them was United. And I'm here thinking, well, bugger me, so which plane is it this time? Do you know what I mean? It very strange. At first I thought it was a mistake. I thought they were actually advertising the same plane from two different places. Then I realised that no, they are two separate planes, and this time it was United that I was supposed to get on, and that was okay because that number did actually tally with what I had. But because I hadn't come on a United flight before, I was, you know, busy reading when they put a call out for me to attend the desk. This was maybe about half an hour before we were due to board. So off I went to the desk and they started asking me questions, and, you know, I gave them the boarding pass, and no, that wasn't the boarding pass that you need, and this